The A770 from Intel provides a better value for mixed-use 1080p and 1440p gaming and content creation than anything else in its price class, and big dogs NVIDIA and AMD would be wise to take notice, as it could be a sign of huge things to come from Team Blue. I was recently asked in a Q&A what company I think has the best shot of saving the GPU industry, and long term, I said I thought it was Intel, despite the fact that the last time I looked at an Intel GPU on the channel, I had this to say about the Arc A380. This little guy was, well, kind of a nightmare to work with. This is Intel's first consumer graphics card release, and even with the newest drivers installed, still almost caused me to give up on this video entirely. So I decided to put my money where my mouth is and make this video testing out their flagship A770, and I have to say that I'm glad that I did. The A770 impressed me in just about every way, and it seems like the two existing GPU manufacturers might actually have something to worry about in the not too distant future. Not only is the A770 an absolutely amazing card to look at, but its beauty goes more than just skin deep. This is an actual powerful piece of hardware, and it's shocking to me to hear myself say that, given that just a few months ago the driver package and overall behavior of Intel GPUs installed in systems was an absolute dumpster fire. My A380, for instance, took me almost 2 hours of troubleshooting to even get Windows to recognize it properly in Device Manager. And then once it was set up and running, it was just a stuttering mess. By contrast, even though I made this face when pressing the power button for the first time with the A770 installed, I was pleasantly surprised with an actual seamless setup experience. After running DDU on my test bench for any NVIDIA or AMD driver remnants, I popped in the A770, plugged in the DisplayPort cable, and what do you know, I had an image on the screen immediately. I installed the Intel Arc drivers within a few minutes, and yeah, that was it. The card worked. That's a pretty good start. I wanted to get an idea of exactly what this card was about. So the first thing I did before going any deeper was to run my standard 9-game GPU benchmarking suite. These 9 games are all pretty heavy titles, and at both 1080p and 1440p were set up to run at ultra settings, but with no ray tracing features enabled. I was fully expecting to get the full gamut here. Some great experiences, some inexplicable stuttering, and some games that might not even run at all, but yeah, that didn't happen. In fact, let's look at some results. From Cyberpunk to Guardians of the Galaxy, these are some pretty impressive numbers. There isn't a game on this list that wouldn't qualify as playable, and we're even getting up into high refresh rate territory at the top end. It was extremely impressive to see the A770 show off performance encroaching on RTX 3070 territory in some of these titles, and handily beating both the RTX 3060 Ti and RX 6700 XT in others. In fact, when you take into account that the A770 not only has a massive VRAM advantage over any of those other cards, plus some real content creation chops, this is a product that more people should be considering right now. But let's make sure that the same holds true once we bump the resolution to 1440p. Now, of course, our numbers are going to come down somewhat, but again, I find myself mightily impressed with what I'm seeing on the page here. The only game that failed to hit the magic 60 FPS number is Cyberpunk, and of course, that's not only the most difficult title to run, but also the one that doesn't necessarily need super high frame rates to be enjoyable. Click down the settings to high and you'll be back up and running in no time. But does this all mean that the gaming experiences were perfect? No, it doesn't. But I wanted to capture some footage from a few different types of games to show you what I was seeing on screen. Here is some Cyberpunk gameplay at 1080p and ultra settings. Ignore any screen tearing that you might see, that's more a function of my capture device than anything else. But besides my atrocious skills at this game, the fluidity and sharpness of the graphics was excellent. The experience was smooth, and I experienced almost no significant frame time spikes that might otherwise contribute to poor 1% lows. I also captured some footage from the Borderlands 3 benchmark. While this isn't a game that I've ever actually played, so it's hard to comment on the experience versus others, the benchmark ran as I would expect, and again, I didn't see any abnormalities or immersion-breaking problems. Now, contrary to Borderlands, I do play more F122 than any other game, and as such, I was pretty keen on pixel peeping this one. The gameplay itself was actually pretty great. It ran at a high frame rate at both 1080p and 1440p, and I'd have no problem popping this into my sim rig. However, it's a good thing that I don't have automated benchmarking tools at my disposal, and that a video like this requires me to sit and stare at a computer screen for hours, because I did notice some weird fringing and halo effects going on in this game in particular. This is some zoomed in footage, and take a look around the rear tires of the car ahead. You can see an artificial looking white trace. And then in this shot, a distorted halo effect was really drawing my eyes. I ran this benchmark several times and also popped into the actual game to see if this would be consistent, and it turns out that it is. For some reason, this was hugely distracting to me, even though it seems like a minor thing. Now, given that I have far more hours into this game than any other, I'm probably way more likely to notice something like this here than in most other titles. But regardless, once I saw this problem, I went back and reran other games to see if I noticed anything weird. I really didn't at all, and this might just be some funky issue with the Intel drivers and the Ego 4.0 graphics engine that F1 is built on. But that interestingly leads me back to one of the main things that I wanted to talk about, and that's driver maturity and Intel's software package. Wow, what a difference a few revisions makes. And let's not forget the fact that the A770 is actually pretty good at other things too. Perusing the Puget Systems Puget Bench results, it's clear that the A770 is a better option for programs like the Adobe Suite than something like the 6600 or 6700 XT from AMD. It has a built-in AV1 encoder for higher fidelity capture at lower bit rates, which now works with OBS and will see widespread adoption in the near future. And it has 16 gigs of GDDR6 memory, which will play nicely with new technologies like direct storage. When Arc first launched, not only was the performance of the hardware poor, but there were some games and applications that straight up wouldn't run. I tried to play Guardians of the Galaxy on 1080p medium settings with my A380 and got 7 FPS. Yeah, 7. Now I'm comparing Intel to mid-range AMD and NVIDIA products without any caveats. I'm not saying this meteoric rise in reliability and results will continue indefinitely. In fact, I'm pretty sure we're now seeing close to the best case scenario for this particular hardware. But Intel is new to this. They're a massive company with a huge amount of engineering knowledge, money to spend, and their own chip fabs. If they can do this with their first release, imagine what could be on the horizon. I try my best to not be a fanboy of any company in particular, and in fact, I've often found myself questioning Intel's decisions in the past, but I can't help but root for who is undoubtedly the massive underdog in this now 3-horse race. Can Intel, the plucky upstart of the graphics card world, continue to push forward with Arc products and make a real case for themselves as an option for consumers? I'd argue that with the A770, they already have. If you're in the market for a mid-range product, you'd be doing yourself a disservice not at least considering a GPU that costs less than its competitors and comes with a lot of forward-facing technology. The MSRP of the A770 is $349, and it's been on sale for as low as $320 recently. If you want to keep costs under $300, the slightly cut down A750 will give you more than 90% of the performance of the A770 for about $270. This is in a market where RTX 3070s are still $500 or more, and the cheapest RTX 3060 Ti on Newegg is $419. The A770 is an actual value in a market where such things are now extremely rare. And if Intel can expand its mind share with potential buyers, more people might start to see that it's an actual worthwhile consideration for your next build. I hope Intel can bring the heat with its next generation of releases, because if we can get AMD and NVIDIA to sweat a little bit, maybe we'll stop seeing these massive price increases that have become the norm. Imagine a world where Intel comes out with the A890, a true flagship graphics card rivaling the RTX 4080 and 7900 XTX. Would you buy it? Would you at least consider it? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, don't forget to hit that like button on your way out the door, and as always guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.